Welcome to Straight Talk and Retirement. Your no-hype source for financial advice and making informed choices about your retirement planning. Get on the phone to talk today at 314-931-5877 or text your question to 84126.
The opinions voiced in this show are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which investments may be appropriate for you, consult with your attorney, accountant, and financial advisor or tax advisor prior to investing. Securities offered through LPL Financial, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advice offered through Private Advisor Group, a registered investment advisor. Private Advisor Group and JBL Financial Services, Inc. are separate entities from LPL Financial.
Now, here are your retirement coaches, Jeff and Erin Lapidus.
Well, hello, St. Louis, and welcome to Straight Talk on Retirement. You're live and local, St. Louis's favorite financial call-in show. I'm Erin Lapidus, president of JBL Financial Services. I know you're all shocked right now, not hearing my dad's sweet voice.
He is enjoying, I'm sure, he's probably on the course right now.
That's right. I think he is enjoying a lovely Saturday of hooky, trying to win a golf tournament, I guess.
Hopefully he comes home with that trophy.
That's right. Well, we help our clients make smart choices about their money. The way we do that is by designing a game plan, a real step-by-step strategy, a real game plan that has several goals in mind. First is to preserve, protect, and prudently grow the assets our clients have taken their entire lifetimes to accumulate.
Second is to deliver a reliable source of income, one they can count on so they can do all the things they want to do in retirement.
And third is cost-effectively addressing their health care needs, like helping individuals enroll in Medicare and choosing the right plan to help them couple with their Medicare coverage. Then, when they're done enjoying their assets, we help them pass them along to the people they love, whether it's their children, grandchildren, churches, or charities, without Uncle Sam taking a big bite out of their money in taxes. We watch their money every single day, and that's why they call us the retirement coaches.
Absolutely.
That's right. Good morning. Well, we are live and local even without the big guy this morning. So you are more than welcome to give us a call, 314-931-5877, or send us a text message, 84126 on the text line. We have a lot of great topics lined up this morning, but we want to hear from you.
As always, what's on your mind is paramount, so give us a call or send in those texts.
That's right. Or, if you'd like, you can catch up with us throughout the week, not just on Saturday mornings. You can log on to our website, jblfinancial.com. In the upper right-hand corner, there's a Contact Us button that gives you the opportunity to request a coaching session, financial, Medicare, or both. Or if you'd like to ask a question, even if it's during the show, that will come directly to us, and we'll try to get to you live. We promise we won't use your name. But if we don't get to you, we'll return within 24 hours. We have a lot of great information on the website, a lot of great tools as well, one of which is our newsletter. On that homepage on the lower left-hand side of the screen, you can click sign up for our monthly newsletter. We do send that out every single month. We also keep it archived on the website, so if you ever want to go back and peruse some old articles, you're absolutely welcome to do that. We've got great videos, some calculators on there as well, even a blog. But, Rob, give us a little bit about what's going on in I guess this is the last week of July.
The quickly closing July newsletter.
That's right.
One week and we'll be all out of it.
We'll have a brand new newsletter for
Exactly.
You. That's right.
Our first article, Bon Voyage. Post-pandemic levels of travel have just returned to their pre-COVID levels. U.S. citizens took 98 million trips in 2023 compared to 99 million right before the pandemic started. And, anecdotally, we've heard a lot of travel plans from our clients, especially over the last couple of months. And it's not surprising that this article has made an appearance given the pent-up demand that was created by the pandemic.
That's right. And then we had all this supply demand. I guess everybody bought everything they wanted to. And now it's time to travel.
Yeah, I mean, when you're locked in your house for an extended stay, traveling all of a sudden looks like an attractive option. So it's a great little infographic there for you to peruse where people are going. And our next article, Watch Out for These Hazards on the Road to Retirement. Great article highlighting some of the things that might get in the way of saving for retirement and how to avoid them, whether it's investing too aggressively, dumping all your money into Bitcoin, don't want to do that. Investing too conservatively, you just bought CDs the whole time, definitely don't want to do that. Using your retirement accounts to buy a new car, unexpected home repair, vacation, etc., don't want to use those retirement accounts as a break in case of emergency fund. That is for retirement. And this is a great article just, giving you a nice little roadmap of things that you want to be aware of and watch out for.
I love this article because I think it goes back to what we like to say, which is retirement planning is about making good choices, and we are only able to make choices with the information that we have in the moment. So looking back, as they say, hindsight can be 20/20, but this gives you, as you said, a nice roadmap to say, here are some of the potential pitfalls that could come up. Let's make some good choices if those things happen to arise.
Absolutely. And our next article, mixing it up, asset allocation and diversification. There's no right or wrong asset allocation. The quote-unquote right allocation depends on your age, risk tolerance, time horizon, and your specific goals. That said, this is an informative article that helps you understand the principles of establishing balance, adding diversification, and staying on target by monitoring the portfolio and changing when necessary. And just like a quick example, here I am in my mid-40s. My portfolio mix is going to look a little bit different than someone who is, say, 67 and just about to retire. I can be a little bit more aggressive. I can be a little bit more speculative, whereas someone who is 67 has already been speculative, and they've taken the risk. Now they can not dial it back, but be a little bit more conservative than someone who has 3 or 4 decades of runway before they get to that point. And our last article, after the loss of a loved one, watch out for scams. We've talked a lot on the show about things to do when a loved one dies, from papers to gather to getting extra death certificates to starting a notebook to write down all the ins and outs, because there's going to be a lot to remember, a lot of numbers, a lot of things. Definitely want to keep that notebook. Well, we can add one more thing to that list, watching out for scammers. Scammers will be aggressively on the lookout for any details that they can exploit, from obituaries, funeral home announcements, social media websites, so on and so forth. You want to avoid putting too much information into the obituary, avoid birthdays, places of birth, addresses, or mother's maiden names. Unfortunately, we have to be on guard even in our most vulnerable moments because, unfortunately, these scammers, that's the moments that they look to prey. So definitely a good article on some things you want to keep top of mind when it comes to what to look out for.
Yeah, the FTC says that individuals lost $10 billion to scams last year. Not this specific scam, but scams in general.
It's terrible. It really is. They ought to hang these people up by the Buster Browns. For those Jaws fans out there will know exactly what I'm talking about. The mayor is just sitting there pointing at that sign. He's like, I want them hung up. Yeah, no. It's funny, but it's not funny.
Certainly not. So, while we're waiting for your calls, 314-931-5877, or your text messages, 84126 from the text line, I wanted to kick our first hour off with 2 different stories about 2 different rock stars, but there's a commonality between the 2 of them.
There always are.
That's right. Well, first, for our new listeners, maybe we have a few new ones, or maybe we have some new-ish listeners that don't know. When we say, what is a retirement rock star? It's someone that has, or some ones, if you're that have enough cash flow or capital or both to meet their income needs in retirement. So sometimes we have individuals that had opportunities to access pensions along with Social Security benefits. They have enough cash flow to meet their needs in retirement. And then for many others, people are relying on Social Security and what they've saved and accumulated their entire lifetimes. If they have enough cash in order to meet those income needs, then we call you a retirement rock star.
And from all the meetings that we've sat in, that's like the number one question or the number one comment out of.
Am I a rock star?
Or they start out like denying, I know.
Denying the fame?
Right. I know I'm not a retirement rock star, but I'm just hoping that, I can join the band kind of thing. And then, at the end of the meeting, it's like, no, actually, you are a rock. Exactly. I mean, if I had a nickel for every time someone said I'm definitely,
you would be a retirement rock
right.
star.
I am not a retirement rock star, and meanwhile, a short time later, it's like actually.
Right, and so our two stories this morning link together because there are many different ways that you can be a rock star in retirement.
Absolutely.
So let's just start off with Paul. He's 63 years old. He was a salesman, and his wife, Judy, is 61. She's currently the chief operations officer of the household. So she worked for a while when the kids were younger, and now she's been at home for the last several years. They've managed to accumulate about $900,000 in retirement assets and about $40,000 in savings. Our first text question, are you taking questions this morning? We are always taking questions. I'll just repeat it one more time for everyone, 314-931-5877 if you'd like to hear your lovely voice on the radio, or 84126 from the text line if you just want to hear ours. So, Paul, 63, Judy, 61. They have about $900,000 in retirement assets. They have about $40,000 in their savings, and they've paid off their mortgage.
Love that.
2 years ago, they hit that milestone, which is really cool. So, tell us a little bit about their income needs.
Well, right now, they're spending their net income goal is $6,000 a month, and we know we have to scale that up for taxes by 20%, so that leaves us with a pre-tax goal of $7,200.
So, unlike starting from the end, where how much money do I need, let's start from how much money do I spend. So when we were working with Paul and Judy, just like when we work with all of our prospective clients, our first question was, how much do you need to make your life work? And as Rob said, they've said $6,000 a month, but we know that's the net of what they need, because no one lives off of the gross of what nobody's living off of the gross. Paul and Judy are not living off of the gross of Paul's pay, because he has taxes withheld before the paycheck's received. He was making retirement plan contributions. So there are several ways that you can calculate this number on your own. You can either add up all of your expenses, determine, hey, that's how much we're spending every month, or you can
That's
say,
hard.
Right.
I like the other way, where it's how much gets deposited into your checking account every month, how much do you have left afterwards?
And if you have nothing left over, that is nothing to be upset about, because you already saved before you received your paycheck. You made your 401k, your retirement plan contributions. We have many people that have, their paycheck gets deposited into their checking account, and they have automatic deductions going to other accounts for savings purposes, things like that. So just what gets dropped into your bank account, that's a good place to start if you're trying to calculate your retirement number. Then you want to add taxes back into that. So we know that their pre-tax goal, like you said, Rob, was $7,200 per month. Where are Paul and Judy going to get some of their income from?
Luckily, Paul has a pension that is $2,000 a month. Paul's Social Security at normal retirement age, which he's about 3 years away from, is $2,800 a month. And his wife, Judy, can piggyback on that with the spousal benefit for about half. So that's $1,400 a month. So between all that, that's about $6,200 a month. So they're almost there when those faucets get turned on.
That's right. They still have a deficit of about $1,000 a month.
Or $12,000 a year.
Exactly. So that means if we have a prudent rate of withdrawal, which we consider about 4%, we'd need a lump sum of capital of about $300,000 in order to generate $12,000 a year. So if you're at home and you're like, what's mine? Paul and Judy's number sounds like it's $300,000 in order to retire. What's my number? Just go right back to the beginning. How much am I spending every month?
That's really where everything begins with your spend number.
Right.
Because that's what we have to figure out.
Right. How much are you spending every month? Increase that by taxes. But we like to use 20%. We find that most individuals fall within the 12 to 15% tax bracket in retirement. But hey, this gives you a little bit of a buffer.
It never hurts to have better to overestimate and come in under is the way we look at it.
Absolutely. So add those taxes in. Subtract your fixed income sources. Is it Social Security? Do you have pension? Are you somebody that created a nice little residential rental portfolio? You have rental income coming in. Whatever the case may be with fixed income, subtract that out. Once you get your deficit, that's a monthly deficit number. Multiply that by 12, and then you're going to divide it by 4%. Or you can multiply it by 25%, and that will get you to the same spot.
One of our texters.
I thought that was great because if you're not super mathematically inclined, I think the visual becomes a little bit better for you if you're multiplying by 25. But if you remember, we're not going to see those faucets turned on right away. We're in 2024, but Paul and Judy are not normal retirement age yet, and we were using their normal retirement age Social Security numbers. So we have a bit of a deficit to fill, less Paul's pension.
Right. We need to make up 3 years of $5,200 a month, which comes out to $187,000 because those faucets aren't turned on until normal retirement age.
Right. So if Paul decides to retire this year, he'll have his pension available at that $2,000 a month, but we won't have those Social Security benefits available quite yet. How do we bridge the gap between now and 3 years from now when Paul is Social Security eligible? We can take a very conservative approach and say if we set aside a lump sum of capital, which literally represents that $5,200 a month for that 3-year period, we need about $187,000.
On top of the $300,000 that he was already going to need when all those faucets were turned on.
$300,000 we call the milk money because that's the ongoing capital need that we have to maintain that $1,000 a month income need.
After all the faucets are turned on.
Exactly. So if we add the $300,000, which we know we need, plus the $187,000, which is that
the
deficit.
Self-funding of the
Social Security.
Of the Social Security gap in the interregnum before those faucets get turned on, we get left with $187,000. I mean, $487,000. I'm sorry, and luckily, he's got $900,000.
It's incredible.
Can you say Rockstar?
That's right.
And the beautiful thing is, they come in thinking like, oh God, I may get in right underneath the door frame, but it's like, nah, you're walking in head held high.
I think that most people, and we've had a few conversations just like this over the past few weeks, when you're working, your goal is always more. I'm just going to save more. I'm going to put it away. I'm not going to look at it. Most people maybe look at their 401ks once a year just to see what the balance is. In a lot of cases, we've seen that people haven't rebalanced or looked at their contributions to retirement plans in years because the mindset is save, save, save. And more is always better. It's hard to argue that. But if we have a goal, a number that you're working towards to get to in retirement, one, I think that becomes a little bit more manageable. And two, it becomes more attainable for everyone because you don't necessarily need $1 million to retire. The great thing was Paul and Judy had accumulated nearly $1 million, but they really only needed half of that to make their retirement work right now.
No, you're absolutely right. And, you see a lot of commercials when you read a lot of different articles saying you must have,
X dollars.
$8 million to retire. How are you going to afford X? And it's like, I get a chuckle out of this. It's like, how can these people, declaratively and definitively, write these pieces when you don't even know what the prospective reader is spending every month? If someone has a $2,000 a month spending habit that they have to fund, well, they're not going to need $8 million. You know what I mean?
And many of those calculators incorporate consistent and right now we're in what we would consider excessive inflation, but that's only been for a protracted amount of time over, a 20-year period. I just had a meeting with an individual who's getting ready to retire, and she had mentioned to me, I built in a lot of buffer into my retirement number of how much I need every month to live, but then I realized I'm someone that really hasn't gotten a raise in the last 10 years. I make it work every single month comfortably for myself. So I don't necessarily need to even continue to add in all of these extras because I know that, hey, inflation has an impact, but it doesn't have a long-term impact for me because my wages weren't rising with inflation over those last 10 years.
That's a great point.
So I think that, the great takeaway here is everybody can do this math at home, and the formula is the same, but the math is just a little bit different because everyone's numbers are just a little bit different.
Everyone's life has a size, and funding to that size is our goal.
Now, I think we should take our first break of the hour, but when we get back, we just talked about Paul and Judy. They're waiting to take their Social Security benefits in retirement because they're retiring a little bit before Social Security eligible. They're retiring. Judy's not quite Social Security eligible yet at 61.
And Paul's got
just
3 years.
became Social Security eligible. He wants to wait a little bit. Let's take a peek at a couple of potential retirement rock stars that maybe they decide not to wait to take their Social Security benefit. So let's take a few different paths to get to rock star status. Welcome back to Straight Talk on Retirement. We're here. We're live.
We're local.
We are local. We're right here in Westport. Give us a call.
Wanting, willing, and waiting.
Every day, more and more like my dad. All right, 314-931-5877, or send us a text message, 84126, from the text line. We'd love to hear from you this morning.
The only text we got was someone saying, are you taking questions this morning?
We are ready. We'll answer that question twice. All right, so before our break, we were talking about Paul and Judy, Paul's getting ready to retire. Judy's already retired. They decided they're going to take their Social Security about 2 years out from when Paul retires, get him to 65. But now let's take a look at another situation.
When to take your Social Security is a crucial part of your retirement game plan. Are you going to continue to work after electing your benefit? You got the take-back provision to worry about.
That's right. You have that situation where Social Security will take a piece of your Social Security payment back if you earn over certain limitations before you reach your normal retirement age. Once you get to normal retirement age,
earn as much as you want.
Free and clear.
Do you have health concerns? Are there longevity issues we need to worry about? Very important. We're not going to be putting off that election till 70 if, all the males on your side of the family only make it to 72. Doesn't make a lot of sense.
Certainly, and Social Security is not something. So your spouse can assume your Social Security benefit, but they would lose their own if yours was larger. You can't pass this benefit on to anyone, and you did pay in your entire working career. So in some cases, longevity is a very important criteria to use in deciding when to start your Social Security benefit.
And the last one I wrote down here is, do you have any fixed income sources we can draw on if we delay that election? In other words, if there's an interregnum between your retirement date and Social Security election, is there another faucet we can play with in that period?
For example, Paul had a pension that was going to cover at least a piece of that income need in retirement. Do we have other opportunities? And fixed income doesn't necessarily mean that it has to come from pension. You could have other
or an annuity. It could be a rental property. It could be anything that we can count on. We have to be able to count on it every month going forward to fund your obligations.
Exactly.
So having said that, let's talk a little bit about Jay and Patty. Erin and I met with them last week. They're both 65, and they've been retired since January.
So they're 65 years old, no longer working, so they've been retired for about 7 months. Is that right?
That's about right.
All right.
They have $1.2 million in retirement assets and a whopping $500,000 in after-tax savings. which is great.
That's awesome. So they've got $1.2 million inside of those IRA accounts, about $500,000 in after-tax investments and savings.
Right now, they're spending about $8,000 a month, which works out to $96,000 a year.
So when we sat down with Jay and Patty, Jay was pretty adamant that, amazingly enough, Jay and Patty are born in the same month.
Only a couple weeks apart, which makes this nice and easy.
It's incredible that because Social Security rules have changed in terms of not only electing strategies, but when you can elect, having the spouses born in the same month, not only does it make the math easier, but it makes the election decisions easier because, for example, Jay was a higher income earner. Patty is going to be taking the spousal benefit from Jay. Jay has to actually be receiving his benefit in order for Patty to be eligible to take the spousal. We don't have to necessarily delay by even a day if we don't want to. They're the same age, born in the same month. They could essentially start their benefits at the exact same time. So we juke the stats a little bit, but the great thing is that the only thing we changed were their names. So let's get back to their information. They need about $96,000 a year.
They do.
Okay.
And Jay commented that they were, and he was fairly adamant about it, that they were both waiting till 67 to elect their benefit. But right now, if they elected their benefit, Jay would receive $3,400 and Patty would receive half of that at $1,700. So combined, they were looking at $5,100 or $61,200 for the year.
Now, if we wait until 67, like they had originally planned, that bumps up their benefits to $3,800 and $1,900 respectively. So we're essentially looking at...
That's a $5,700 versus $5,100.
So we're looking at $600 a month difference.
Or $7,200 for the year.
Got ya.
So, everyone, and we talked about this yesterday, when we talk about Social Security elections, a lot of people will delay it thinking about what I'm going to get. It's I'm going to get that extra.
I'm getting the 8% increase.
Right, I'm getting the 8%. No one, or very rarely do we see someone say, well, yes, that's true, I'm getting the 8% increase, but what am I giving up?
So what are Jay and Patty giving up by waiting 2 years not to take their Social Security benefit?
So by waiting, they've increased their benefit by $600 a month, but there are two things to consider. By not taking their benefit at 65 and waiting to 67, they have forfeited $122,400 in benefits.
So, and the way we got to that number is just taking the $5,100 a month over 2 years.
Correct.
Got ya. Their projected increase is only $600 a month if they wait those 2 years. So, how long will it take them to recoup the $122,000 they gave up over that first 2-year period?
17 years.
To break even. So that means that they'll have to live 17 years plus one extra Social Security payment.
65 plus 20, 85, so minus 3, so 82 is break even for Jay and Patty. 82.
It's a long time to wait.
That is a very long time, I would say.
Here's a few things that I would like everyone to think about when you're making your own Social Security elections, which is, number one, do I have enough to fund the deficit? We know that from our first conversation, Paul and Judy had enough to fund that deficit. Jay and Patty, in this situation, they have $1.7 million of assets. They are able to fund that deficit between 65 and 67 years old. So really what this does is this is putting them in a position to make a decision that makes them feel the most comfortable. We could do it both ways. They could wait till 67 to take their Social Security benefit. They need $96,000 times 2, which is $192,000 of assets in order to do that. Or instead of relying on their portfolio to do all of the work for them, if they started their Social Security benefits now, they're going to take $5,100 a month of pressure off of their portfolio, and
right. Well, if they're spending $96,000 a year, and we elect Social Security for both of them, and that's $61,000, so right away, almost 2/3 of their deficit is gone. So we've taken that pressure immediately off their assets, and doing that accomplishes a lot of things. It allows your assets to run a little bit faster because they're not being drawn upon. And also, if we don't have to set aside the
almost
$200,000, where would that? In other words, and then you scale in the break even of
the 17 years.
Right. How much could that potential savings grow over 17 years?
That's a good point, because every 20-year period, your assets are projected to double.
So by not spending it, in a way, you're not only saving it, but you're allowing it
you're conserving the growth opportunity of those assets.
And, that's another one that really gets lost when we talk about the growth opportunities of money not spent. You know what I mean? When you talk about Roth conversions, you talk about self-funding. The minute those assets get pulled out, all that growth, like the opportunity to capture any, is gone. It's out the door, especially when, in Jay and Patty's case, the break even just to come out with your head above water, is 17 years away.
That's an interesting way to think about it. That's thinking
the
next
level.
That's the end result. I took my Social Security, so that's money I didn't have to spend out of my portfolio, and now I can see that growth over a 20-year period. Well, today, Jay and Patty mentioned that they feel a little different in retirement. Like I mentioned before, most people, they just save, they don't look at what they're saving. They don't necessarily look at what they're spending, as long as they're staying away out of the red, so to speak.
Jay made the comment that, he was never a market watcher.
And now he is.
He is a religious market watcher.
Maybe having a significant 2/3 of your income need covered by a fixed income source would alleviate some of that discomfort for you in retirement. And that's really what we're talking about when we say making a decision that feels right to you or that you're comfortable with. As long as we know the math works, which we did know for Patty and Jay, they had the opportunity to either continue to delay that benefit, watch it bump up over time, or say, hey, maybe we'll start relying a little bit on Social Security to help us with that. The other thing we didn't mention is, even though they're both born in the same month, the same year, they don't necessarily have to elect together. We may say, hey, Jay, take your Social Security benefit. That takes a nice chunk. And you may say, let Patty's keep growing for a little bit longer. Maybe even if it's just 1 year. We're just using two significant examples. Waiting till both turn normal retirement age, or saying, hey, let's just grab it right now, you're already retired.
You could go with a stagger. The great thing about Patty and Jay is that they have a lot of options. There's no option that is foreclosed to them. They can go about it any way they'd like, but having that flexibility is great. And, I think it would be smart to maybe consider looking at electing Social Security for all the reasons that we mentioned.
It's the same idea as long-term care insurance. People say, shouldn't I buy it earlier because it will be less expensive? It's just amortizing the cost over a different period of time. Social Security is amortizing your payment over a different amount of time. If you allow the government to hold your assets, they'll say, we'll give you a little bit more back when you do begin to take it, almost like an interest payment of 8% per year. But you are still giving up what you aren't taking. So you want to look at it from all sides before making a decision. And we've got our first text, or our second text of the hour.
And our second texter writes, my dad waited and waited to take Social Security to get the most. He died unexpectedly at 74 after a 5-week illness. Don't wait. You make a great point. We don't know what tomorrow brings, and we all like to, make plans for next week, next month, next year, so on and so forth. But,
we had a really great infographic in one of our newsletters.
When people wait to take only 10%.
Right. A very small, when is the average people take Social Security benefits? More people are taking them early than waiting until 70 to take them. And obviously that's for a few reasons. One is people are retiring younger now, and they do want to access their Social Security benefit to make their income work. But just as you mentioned, a lot of people don't want to wait because they think to themselves, well, I've paid in my entire life.
They want to start.
I want to start seeing some of that money come back to me. So longevity can be an issue, and that could be an unknown issue, unfortunately. Just like our texter said, a 5-week illness, that wasn't necessarily something in the family history. So it's important to do the numbers a few different ways and then decide what makes you feel the most comfortable in making these elections. But it's great to know that there are multiple paths to get you to being a retirement rock star.
And, there's not it's never a bad idea to sit down and get a second or even a third set of eyeballs on these election decisions before you make them. Because, a lot of times someone may open up your eyes to a different way of thinking about it that you hadn't considered. I mean, like I said,
and at least some elections are non-reversible. Like most pension elections, once you submit that paperwork, you've made your election. Social Security will give you one opportunity to redo your election.
You'd be paying back all that money. You could do it, I believe, the first year you elect.
One time the first year you elect.
And you got to pay back all that money.
That's right. Yes, that is correct. So you have to have all the money in your account, meaning that you couldn't have spent it already. So it's rare that we see people doing that. But again, I think we should take our second break of the hour.
Let's. Don't touch that dial. We'll be back with more straight talk on retirement and hopefully more of your texts and calls after these messages.
Welcome back to our last segment of our first hour of Straight Talk on Retirement.
That flew by.
Yeah. Hey, when you're talking about retirement rock stars, the time just flies.
This is true.
So we've spent a lot of time talking about ways that individuals can take advantage of their required minimum distributions.
And we've received several emails this week dealing with qualified charitable distribution questions. And we thought we would spend a little bit of time at the back half of the first hour going over the gist of pretty much what we've received from several different people. So Tony, who's 69, was writing and said, I was talking with a friend after church who mentioned that they were directing a portion of their annual required minimum IRA distribution to pay their church dues. Their IRA custodian is sending the money directly to the church. I am currently taking monthly withdrawals from my IRA as part of my retirement plan. I know that Erin and Rob talk about this on the show often. Should I be doing this?
That's a great question.
It is.
That's why we brought it up. So, there's good news and there's bad news. The good news is, Tony, you are so young, only 69 years old. Unfortunately, qualified charitable distributions can't begin from your account until you are 70 and a half. So there's a couple of things here. Required minimum distribution age is right now 73. That's when you absolutely have to start taking a certain dollar amount out of your retirement accounts. Some people don't need that full amount in order to make their income work, so they are left with an excess that they'll have to pay taxes on that I won't say they don't know what to do with, but they haven't determined what to do with yet.
Good problem to have.
Absolutely. This could give those individuals the opportunity to say, well, let's take, let's just say that the church dues are $1,000 a month, $12,000 a year. You want to take $12,000 and make that donation to charity. You have a required minimum distribution to make. Just like Tony's friend at church, you can have the custodian, the bank that holds your IRA, send the money directly from
the custodian
to the charity. No taxes.
None.
That's at 73, so that'll help you meet your required minimum distribution. The way it does that is, let's say that you are only withdrawing $28,000 a year from your IRA before you get to 73, where you have to take your required minimum distribution. But then you find that the $28,000 isn't enough to meet your required minimum distribution. You really need to take 40. So you can continue to take that $28,000 as your income, and then you can have the $12,000 sent to charity, to church in this example. You'll meet your required minimum distribution because the full 40 has been distributed, but you're
only taxed
on the 28.
See how that works?
That's great, but Tony's 4 years.
He's a youngin'.
He only has to wait till 70 and a half because there's another provision in the tax code, the qualified charitable distribution, which says once you reach 70 and a half, you can make charitable distributions in the same way we just described from your IRA directly to a charity and not have any tax consequences. So Tony's already taken IRA distributions. We can talk to him next year once he reaches 70 and a half and say, do you want us to split those distributions? Say he's pulling $2,000 a month from his IRA, $1,000's going to charity, he's keeping the balance. Why don't we send him the $1,000 a month and then also set up a distribution every month of $1,000 to charity? Instead of being taxed on $24,000 a year, he'll only be taxed on the $12,000 that he actually received. The $1,000 that went into his bank account, $12,000 will still go to charity, but he won't have to pay taxes on it. Now, you have to be 70 and a half in order to do that. And then 73 is where it can really make a big difference, especially if you're in that position where you're not completely using every dollar that the required minimum distribution is going to require in that year.
And we have a text question. When did it go to 73? I believe with the Secure Act.
Secure Act moved it from 70 and a half to 72. And I think the Secure Act 2.0
2.0 moved it from 72 to 73. And it will be going up
to 75.
75.
So this is a little, it's been a required minimum distribution whirlwind.
It's a moving target.
Over the last basically, no one talked about required minimum distributions, the age, the percentage. For over a decade, nothing had changed. And then all of a sudden, during COVID, we got a pass year. You didn't have to take the required minimum distribution during one of the years of COVID if you didn't want to. Then the Secure Act started making alterations to when you had to start taking your required minimum distribution, and they did it kind of in succession, one year after the other. So it's been a little hard to keep up, but really at the end of last year is when they moved it up to 73. The great news is as they continue to alter the age, as long as you have not attained that age, you are able to take advantage of the later year.
So, for instance, if someone is 72 right now, they have a year before they get to 73. Let's just say, for argument's sake, that Congress, can
pass some legislation
right,
that's at 75 now.
Because he hasn't already been on that RMD schedule, he doesn't have anything to worry about.
Right, you get to keep chasing it, which is really nice. So, let's move on to, we've got some more IRA questions. We've got a great text question on deck, but I think we're going to save it until our Smart Choices About Your Healthcare segment because it looks like it's an awesome question about Medicare.
Yes, it does. Very, very long.
Let's take a few minutes and talk about how the IRS has finalized the inherited IRA required minimum distribution rules. So now, previously we were talking about your personal required minimum distribution when you turn 73 from your personal IRA. Now let's talk about the changes that the same act, the Secure Act, actually made to inherited IRAs. So these are IRAs that you receive from a non-spouse. All
non-spouse beneficiaries must empty the inherited IRA account within 10 years. Otherwise, a 25% penalty is levied.
There's a couple of things to this. First thing would be is if an individual under the age of 18 inherits an IRA, they can actually use the RMD schedule until they get to 18, and then they have to liquidate within 10 years, right? So it's got to be gone by the time they're 28 years old. But they could take the RMD from, let's say they inherited at 16 years old.
They can be on the RMD schedule for 18, and then the 10-year
kicks in. The other thing to just point out is when we say non-spousal beneficiaries, the reason that we make that distinction is because when a spouse passes away and the surviving spouse is the beneficiary of that account, there are unlimited tax-free transfers of assets between spouses. So what that means is if you predecease your spouse will be able to rename the IRA in their name if they'd like to do that. When a non-spouse inherits an IRA, so children, grandchildren, friends,
anyone other than a spouse, they are never truly renaming the IRA in their name. It's always for the benefit of.
It's a beneficiary IRA in the beneficiary's name, but it still also has the name of the deceased individual on the titling. So there's two names on that account. There are. Another important one, if the IRA owner was not taking required minimum distributions at their death, the inherited IRA beneficiaries don't have to take a minimum amount. There is no minimum that they have to take. It just has to be liquidated within 10 years. So there's a lot of flexibility there if you've inherited an IRA from someone that was not 73.
I mean, in theory, you could not take any distributions for 9 years, and 10 years you got to
take it all.
Right. I mean, I wouldn't advise that, but
that's why it's important to sit down and have a conversation about taxes at important points, and we call them inflection points. So when you inherit money, it might be important to sit down and say, what's the most tax efficient way to maintain what I have inherited? It's not just necessarily about what you're invested in. It's how are you extracting that money from the estate.
You know, previously, if you inherited someone's RMD schedule, their IRA, you also inherited their RMD schedule. The IRS has been pretty lenient in waiving that.
The last couple of years.
Right, but I would not count necessarily on that being waived going forward.
That's a really great point. Congress passes legislation. The IRS has to interpret it. It's taken the IRS a little bit of time to interpret it. They've given you leeway during that.
Interregnum.
You said that word so many times.
I love it.
I was going to say during that study period where they're studying the legislation that's been passed and they're making some decisions, they'll start enforcing it eventually. But it's also important to consider we're in an election year. We're concerned about taxes in the future. You know, what is your income going to look like in the future? You may want to create a steady distribution pattern, not just take it all at one time.
I was just going to say, I don't know that does you any favors not taking the RMD,
right.
even if you get the waiver, because you're still creating a problem. You still have the issue of you have to empty it out in 10 years.
Right, it doesn't push it out any further.
If you keep delaying the emptying out, eventually you're going to get to a point where, you know, I have to do this. So, you know, you're on the clock, and it's better to keep the clock moving with you taking those distributions.
Now, I won't say you all have to do this, but we would love for you to stay tuned through our break, because when we get back, we are going to be discussing some smart choices about your health care, as well as continuing to take your questions. So don't touch that dial. We'll be right back.
This are choices for your money.
It's Straight Talk and Retirement on the Big 550 KTRS.
Here are your retirement coaches, Jeff and Erin Lapidus.
Welcome back. It's time.
Because you care, we talk Medicare.
That's right. It's our smart choices about your health care segment. I think we've got a great one on deck. However, we've got an even better message from a listener.
We do. And our texter writes, "Hi, I have an update on my Aetna Gold Advantage fitness reimbursement benefit. I just got reimbursed the full $520 for a home gym weight machine I purchased on Amazon. I'm going to order an incline rower so that I am taking full advantage of the $1,200 reimbursement benefit. Of note, I am also using the Aetna Gold Advantage $200 per quarter copay card benefit to the max by getting all the cardiac, vascular, and other screenings that the hospital offer, but are self-pay. I love this plan. Thank you so much." You know, that those extra benefits, particularly that one, the $1,200
the fitness benefit,
it is phenomenal. We've had people say that they've submitted claims for Apple iWatch Pro, $950 getting that back. I mean, that's insane. I mean, here we have a gentleman that's, between the copay cards and the fitness allowance,
he's going to live forever.
The fitness allowance is $1,200. Stack on the copay cards for his screenings and whatnot.
He's got the home gym. He's got the rower.
$2,000. And, the great thing about
he's going to look like Chuck Norris.
I don't want to get too far out in front of the parade because these plans, they change.
They're going to change, yeah.
Right. They're going to be amended a little bit. But if they stay roughly the same, I'll say within 10%, just between those two benefits is $2,000. Say they shave him back a little bit, he loses a couple $100. Still $1,800 in benefit. Now, granted, that's not a reason to join
the plan.
Right. It's just because, you like the fitness allowance. It's all about, who you're seeing and what you're taking, as always. But, if all the other considerations are being met, these peripheral benefits really go far. And we have one of our texters that's taking full advantage of it, so you love to see it.
Yes, and I love that they've updated us. I think we mentioned this last weekend or maybe the weekend before. Send us your updates. Tell us what you're... Also, I just met with another client this past week who is using the United Healthcare policy. They don't have a fitness allowance, but they do have ways that you can earn rewards, that they have a catalog that you can buy things from, including like the Fitbit watches, golf clubs, golf balls, things of that nature. So I won't call it convoluted. You got to do a little work to get the United Healthcare benefit, but it is available to you. Like, for example, I think you have to walk 2,000 steps, 4,000 steps twice a week, and you get $100, something like that. So there's a few options available to you that'll add some credits for you to be able to purchase some fitness things through United. But we'd love to hear your updates, not just from the Aetna policy. What'd you get in the over-the-counter benefit? What'd you get from the fitness benefit? We know what you get in the hearing and the vision benefits, but if you can hear or see your wife better and you want to let us know, you just send us a text. We'd love to hear about it.
Listeners and texters, you have to give us updates because we have to live vicariously through your claims process because we can't.
Right.
Unfortunately, we're not Medicare eligible. And as much as I would love to, get on one of these plans myself and, regale our audience with tales of
returning over-the-counter items for cash.
Oh, my God. It would be just, they'd have my picture on walls.
Now, we're going to have to wait. I hate cliffhangers, but we're going to have to throw a cliffhanger at you because my dad, as you all know, is on the Aetna Gold Advantage policy. He has access to the fitness reimbursement, and I mentioned to him, just as I've mentioned to every listener and client, if you would like Frank, our Medicare coach, to help you with the reimbursement and the submission process, he's here to help. But Dad said he was going to go it on his own. I saw him submitting the claims a couple of days ago, maybe like Tuesday of this past week. And then Friday, I happened to be out of the office for an hour or two, but Rob, you got to witness. We're in motion right now with the claim. Tell me where we are.
He was on the phone.
Not happy.
Less than pleased, shall we say. And he
had a claim denied for greens fees.
Green fees, and they wanted, if I caught, because I obviously was not on the phone, I was busy at work at my desk, but I could overhear the rising agitation.
The anger growing, rising.
But apparently the snafu, to the extent there was one, was that I guess he submitted the green fees, he totaled them all up and submitted them as one, whereas each one
needs to have its own.
You
got to prove.
I can only hear one side of the conversation, and I'm not sure that woman got all that much in advice because
Well, here's the thing. That makes perfect sense to me. Sure, we all know my dad. He's going to take advantage of the greens. But Aetna has to know you actually went all the times you were going. You can't just go once and say, well, I'm going to go 12 times. And then give them the math. I think you have to show them each receipt, unfortunately.
Yeah, it makes sense when you think about it. But if you didn't know,
Which is why, if you chat with Frank if you have any questions before your submission, you want to give us a quick call and chat with Frank and say, hey, am I doing this right? Am I missing anything? Then you could avoid the aggravation of seeing a denied claim. Now, just because it was denied this time doesn't mean once that he's resubmitted, I'm sure after utilizing some professional assistance from our Medicare coach, he will get that all squared away. But some things were already approved for him. I think his golf clubs or something.
Yeah, it wasn't a total loss, and I'm sure,
Right.
like you said, once the I's are dotted and T's are crossed, he'll obviously most likely get back everything, and at least he'll know going forward exactly how it has to be,
handled.
Right.
Let's talk about Pauline. She's been on Medicare for 10 years.
When she first joined her Medicare prescription drug plan,
Medicare Advantage plan.
Right.
Yeah.
She had very few healthcare needs. She would visit the doctor for annual physicals, use her dental allowance for cleanings, and take advantage of the Silver Sneakers gym membership. She had few out-of-pocket costs with the plans and was quite content. So content, she hadn't made a change in 10 years.
That's not uncommon.
No.
Because just as you mentioned, Rob, the plans do change, but we haven't seen
wholesale
drastic changes to the policies year over year in quite some time.
I like to call it the guardrails of the 40-yard lines. They stay within the 40-yard lines and they tweak them. You know what I mean? Like the fitness allowance may go from 12 to 15 or 12 to 8. The what's the
copays for the doctor's
copay
visits,
card may
like
go
that.
from $200 a quarter to $150, or it may go to $250. Like, they tweak them, but it isn't like, I was looking at apples and oranges, now I got pears and grapes. Like, whoa.
Right. And even if we look over a 10, even 15-year period at this point, because the changes are so minor over time, it's not like looking back, you have changes of magnitude. Because if I look at, our texter wrote about the Aetna Gold Advantage policy. That policy, what the original creation was through Coventry, which was purchased by Aetna over 10 years ago at this point. And their maximum out-of-pocket 13 years ago was $2,300. This year, the Gold Advantage, which is what it's turned into over the last 13 years, is now $2,400. Now, it went up over time. It came back down over time. So sometimes you do see changes, but they are relatively incremental. So
on the margins.
That's right.
So back to Pauline. At the end of last year, things weren't going quite as well as the previous 10 years. She began experiencing extreme fatigue, migraines, and muscle soreness. Open enrollment was the last thing on her mind. But now, after seeing multiple doctors, having multiple tests to determine what was wrong, she had a diagnosis: fibromyalgia and a bill. On track to hitting her maximum out of pocket this year at $2,400. So, Pauline went from rarely using her plan and seeing one doctor to seeing multiple doctors and the possibility of needing to see even more. Naturally, Pauline wanted to know if she should return to original Medicare with a supplement, or if she should switch plans during open enrollment.
So I thought, let's take a step back before we take a step forward. Let's look at what we've done before we decide what we're going to do. So Pauline's been on a Medicare Advantage plan for 10 years. Let's go back 10 years and flip that. Let's say instead Pauline had elected a supplement paying premium for the past 10 years in addition to a prescription drug plan. So I set the Plan G supplemental premium at $170 a month.
That's very kind of you.
And I said that the prescription drug plan was about $20 a month. Now, there are many prescription drug plans that are less than $20 a month. There are many that are more than $20 a month. The $170 a month premium for Plan G is relatively low, and that's also the first year. So this is an estimate, and in my opinion, it's probably on the low side of the estimated amount of money that she would have spent over the past 10 years. But just giving you those caveats, we'll say $170 a month in premium for Plan G, $20 a month in prescription drug plan.
We'll make it nice and easy. We'll just call it $200 a month in premium.
So it's $2,400 a year
scale that up over 10 years, that's $24,000 that Pauline would have spent when she was just on cruise control.
No matter what.
Right. Just going to see, her primary, getting, her year-end physical, so on and so forth. That's a lot of money.
But this year, now let's jump forward again. So we know that over the past 10 years, Pauline's probably saved around $24,000. This year, though, she's on track to spend $2,400. That's a lot.
Yeah, that is a lot.
However, over the past 10 years, she's banked 10 maximum out of pockets. She probably, and I say this a lot, which is, we'll have this conversation again when you have a bill, which is think about the savings that you were creating on a monthly, on an annual, on a decade basis by not prepaying the insurance company. Now, when you get the bill, you're going to come back to me and say, Erin, it's still $2,400. It's a lot of money at one time. And I'll say, remember all of the savings we created for you. So in the moment, it never feels great to have to shell out money for healthcare expenses.
No.
However, if we look at the math over any 10, 20, 30-year period, and that's what we want to look at your healthcare needs over, is over a extended period of time, not just on a year-to-year basis, most people tend to come out ahead. If you keep your money, only give it to the insurance company when you need to, the way that Medicare Advantage plans have really set themselves up to do. You pay no monthly premium, and you pay co-pays and co-insurance when you go to the doctor. Pauline wasn't going to the doctor very often, or when she was, it was those $0 co-pays for the primary for the past 10 years. Now this past year, she's had to dip into her pocket.
And, just going back to the 10 years where she didn't have a problem, that's actually ahead of the one every 7 years.
She got a few banked
right.
years.
She banked even above and beyond the one out of every 7 years, which is great.
Because that one every 7 years number is Aetna and United and a few other companies put out some information a few years ago about how often individuals on their Medicare Advantage plans hit their maximum out of pocket. And they determined that the average person hits it one time every 7 years. So Pauline managed to go one time every 10 years, which is better than the average and great. But even if you're only at the average, one time every 7 years, the math still works.
That would be 2,400 times 7. So that's like $17,000.
So Pauline should be feeling pretty good right now. I'm feeling pretty good about her decisions for Medicare over the past 10 years. But now what does it look like moving forward for her? Because her health is a little different and things may continue to be not perfect.
So she has that $2,400 maximum out of pocket, which she's already saved for in spades as we've gone over the last 10 years. But can we make it better for her? Well, her plan offers a $200 a quarter copay card that can help pay for some of those doctor's costs, lab tests, and x-rays. So if she were to maximize that benefit, the out-of-pocket decreases from $2,400 to $1,600.
And the reason for that is the copay that you spend still goes against the maximum out of pocket. But if you use the copay card, you don't go into your own pocket. You're using that copay card to do it. So you get it counted in two ways. One, you didn't pay for it because that was part of your copay card benefit. But two, it is going against that $2,400 maximum out of pocket for you.
Reduced dollar for dollar.
Exactly. That's the most direct way we can reduce her costs. However, we mentioned that Pauline enjoys the extra benefits of her plan, just like our previous texter mentioned all of the extra benefits they were taking advantage of. So this is math that I like to do with every plan that a client enrolls in, because you're able to see all of the value added and savings created by the extra benefits that these insurance companies are offering. We focused on the Aetna policy because we had a texter mention it, but almost every Medicare Advantage plan that you can purchase in Missouri and Illinois has opportunities for you to take advantage of extra benefits that you do not have to pay for, that can help defray your costs over an annual or decade-long basis.
And the first one being the fitness allowance.
So let's just say Pauline's on the Gold Advantage policy, just like our texter. She's got a $1,200 fitness allowance, $480 in that over-the-counter.
Love that.
Right. $405 for eyewear available to her, And
$3,200, $3,250.
Don't forget the 50.
And don't want to do that in dental. Like, wow.
So total, and I didn't even include Silver Sneakers gym membership, that dollar value. I didn't even add that in.
Why not? Why not?
I also didn't add in the hearing aid benefit because not
everyone
utilizes that. Or if you don't need it, why are you going out to get the hearing aids?
For those out there in radio land, we don't want to totally juke the stats but I mean, Silver Sneakers is one of those where everyone, I mean.
Well, sure. So even if we're still going to set that to the side because the numbers that's how good these numbers are.
Staggering.
So if we total up everything we just mentioned, that's $5,335 in extra benefits.
Versus the $1,600 max out of pocket.
If we use every dollar of every copay card available. Or even if the $2,400 maximum out of pocket, if she didn't have the opportunity to utilize a single copay card. So my math says that if we subtract the if we subtract out the maximum out of pocket between $2,400 and $1,600, depending on how much of the copay card you were able to utilize from the extra benefits, Pauline was able to utilize. She still walks away with between $3,000 and $3,700 of the insurance company's money. She could hit her maximum out of pocket every single year moving forward if the benefits stayed at least relatively similar, and she's still going to put almost $3,000 back into her own pocket at minimum.
It's amazing. It really is, and I really like the idea of offsetting that max out-of-pocket cost with that copay card because it's like, you know, here's a third of what you would have had to spend throughout the year. We're just going to give it to you.
Now, sometimes, this is what I've said about the copay card. Sometimes it's a bell that doesn't ring because
you're not using it.
You have to, not only do you have to use the $200
in that quarter,
but you have to find things that actually have copay. So your annual visits to the primary doesn't count. Routine visits to the primary don't count because there's no copay associated with them. Unfortunately, you can't use the copay card to fill prescriptions. So sometimes you're not going to be able to completely max out using the full $200 a month a quarter. Or maybe you're like our texter and say, hey, there's a few tests that I haven't done because they're self-pay and I would like to see. I've had some cardiac issues. Maybe I want some additional cardiac testing, or I haven't had any issues, but I have a family history of it and I want to check it out. Now you have some extra cash to be able to do that.
For next year, and we don't have the answers to exactly what Pauline's needs are going to be, what she might need in the future, but we do know what extra benefits she likes. So at least we have a starting off point.
Well, we also have a starting off point because we know what she needs. She's got that fibromyalgia that she has to deal with. She's got some ongoing testing. Things are different for her now, right? We don't know what she needs. We may know what she needs in the immediate future. So, for example, she comes in and says, I still have like 3 or 4 more tests to do. They want to do a scan, something like that. We might be able to incorporate that. We also know what extra benefits she likes. The real bogey is we don't know what the plans are going to look like.
We won't know that for a little bit.
Right, and we won't be able to really talk about that until October 1st. But this situation has also created another important opportunity for Pauline, which is now she can be in the habit of checking her plan every year during open enrollment, which, although things were going really well for her over the past 10 years, she was happy with the plan. I still recommend you at least review the benefits that you have. Make sure that you've heard from the individual that you worked with to secure them. So, for example, what our office is going to do this year is we're going to make every attempt to reach out to people that we think are still in the best possible spot if nothing's changed with them, to say, hey, this policy that you're on, although the benefits have changed, here are some of the changes. We still think this is the best option for you if things were the same last year. Make sure that you've had at least that conversation or at least seen that communication from whomever you might be working with to make sure that your health insurance is going to track your health care needs over time, because those things can change. And if you're someone that was like Pauline for the past 10 years where you're kind of on autopilot in terms of your actual medical needs. You're seeing the doctor once a year for your physical. Maybe you have a couple of specialists that you're just in maintenance mode, so to speak. But you have some other things going on. Maybe you do need hearing aids. Maybe you do want that fitness benefit. Maybe there are other things that we can help you with to maintain the medical side of your coverage, maintain the prescription side of your coverage, but take advantage of some extra goodies, so to speak, from the insurance company. You've been paying them your entire life, one way or the other, through premium, through taxes. You're paying your Medicare Part B taxes, and you're paying your Medicare Part B premium now. Or you were paying copays and premium.
Right.
They're not going to give the money back to you if you don't use it. So make sure that you're able to take some dollars back from them in ways that are going to be meaningful to you over time.
And, there's going to be some sizable changes, certainly to the supplement. We've been given a heads up on that. We don't know exactly
pricing changes. Yeah,
exactly what those changes are going to be. They haven't, the ink hasn't dried on them, but this is going to be I wouldn't say a chaotic open enrollment, because every open enrollment
is going to be an exciting open enrollment.
It's going to be very robust, and
yes.
You're going to want to get on that schedule sooner rather than later. So,
and speaking of the changes that are coming up, and that's right, you do want to get on the schedule sooner rather than later. And shockingly enough, October is just. It's like weeks away.
We're counting weeks now.
Crazy.
I mean, we'll be in September in like 5 weeks.
Which means we'll be in October in like 9 weeks.
Right.
So, if you're like Paulie and you haven't had a review in a while, you'd like a review, you'd like to hear how someone is able to take money back from the insurance company, give our office a call, 314-863-0008, and you can set up a time, either if you're newly enrolling into Medicare, you are retiring, and you'd like some help transitioning into Medicare. Frank, our Medicare coach, can help you with that. Or if you're someone already on Medicare and you would like a review during open enrollment, Frank can help you with that too. 314-863-0008 or Franklin at jblfinancial.com. Now, you mentioned, Rob, that there were some changes.
One of the big ones is
coming,
and this is a great one, I think, is that the donut hole
is basically gone.
Gonzo. And all drug costs are going to be capped at $2,000, like a max out of pocket.
But on your prescriptions.
But on your prescriptions.
That's Many people have been waiting since the second Bush administration for this to, seriously, 20 plus years for this to happen.
No, it's great that they finally gotten around to capping those costs at $2,000. But in addition to that, there's going to be what's called a smoothing.
Well, first, everyone's capped at $2,000, right? Every Medicare beneficiary.
Everyone.
Awesome.
There's also a smoothing provision.
And the way I like to think of the smoothing provision is kind of like when Erin, if you're in Missouri at least, says, hey, you spend more money
in the summer than you do in the winter. How about we keep
your bill consistent?
That way you don't have that big jump up in the summer months that maybe your budget can't withstand, but you can withstand a smooth, consistent payment over the full year that will incorporate those costs. Well, that's
Medicare's done the same thing
vis-a-vis your drug costs. So go over some bullet points here.
Yes.
Any Medicare beneficiary is eligible for the smoothing provision.
Okay.
Pharmacies will be required to inform Medicare beneficiaries about the program if their prescriptions are more than $600 a fill.
But guys, I would not count on the pharmacies telling you about this.
Right.
Whomever you've worked with, if you worked with us, we're going to be talking about it not only during open enrollment on the show every week, but we're going to be talking about it in our individualized meetings with clients where we recognize that they are going to have copays potentially of more than $600 a fill. Don't rely on where you fill your meds to help you out with this.
Another great point, cannot be disenrolled from Part D for unpaid debt. As long as you continue to pay your premium, you cannot be disenrolled.
So you can take an interest-free loan from the pharmaceutical companies, basically, pick up your meds, and as long as if you have a premium associated with your policy and you continue to pay your premium, they can't kick you off. Now, they can bill you, though, and send you to collections if you don't pay timely, but you don't have to pay every time on time in order to maintain your benefits or get your medications, correct?
That is correct, and you just stole my next point. Normal debt collection rules apply. So if you
could get sent to collections.
Right, that is a risk, but you can't be disenrolled.
Right.
And it has no bearing on your ability to enroll next year.
And so give me an example, Rob, of how this is going to work.
So say Susie enrolls in the smoothing provision on January 1st of next year.
Okay.
Her first prescription fill is 3 weeks later, and the fill is $20,000.
So she's on some expensive biologics, some injectable meds.
Absolutely.
Okay.
She's responsible for $2,000 of that cost. She leaves the pharmacy not paying a dime, but will be billed $167 for 12 months.
So you can do it one of two ways. She could give the $2,000 all on January 21st when she goes to fill her meds for the first time, and then she won't pay again for the rest of the year for any meds that she fills.
Correct. She's just left with that balance broken up over.
Or she could just take it. She could say, "Give me the meds, bill me," and she'll just bill you. She'll just be billed $167 a month for the 12 months, never a dollar more than that.
Absolutely. Well, there are no finance charges for enrolling in the smoothing program. There could be. Mm-hmm. They haven't quite worked it out, between a $10 and $25 fee, like an enrollment fee. But they haven't quite, you know what I mean? This is all, they're still dotting the I's and crossing the T's down there. And
again, Congress passed legislation, and now we're trying to figure it out.
And you can enroll or disenroll in the smoothing provision at any time.
So she pays 2 or 3 months of her monthly bill of that $167, and then decides, I just got my required minimum distribution for the year. I've got some extra cash. Let me just pay the balance right now. Disenroll me. Next fill, I'll pay the $1,600 that I owe.
Absolutely. That's exactly how I understand the program as it's being laid out.
Awesome. So not only are you going to have a lot of choices, you're going to have some consistency. Also, there's going to be a lot less confusion, because the donut hole was one of the more complicated pieces of Medicare to understand. And the great news is they've gotten rid of all that. $2,000 cap, you're done. You could pay it all at once, or you could pay it over a 12-month period if you happen to have a medication that's going to push you there. So
yeah, this program would be ideal for someone that has really expensive drug costs.
So those tier 4,
right.
3, 4, 5.
Exactly. And you want that. You don't want to have to come up with it all at once. And you want to just kind of glide throughout the year with a payment that is manageable, that gets you to that place where you're able to.
And also, you're just capping the cost so significantly. I mean, true out-of-pocket costs for Medicare enrollees that actually exceeded the donut hole could be over $8,000 a year.
All right.
So this is a huge savings. We've got one last text question, and then I think, we've got two text questions, and then we'll take our break.
And our next texter writes, hey, is there a cost for that Aetna Gold policy, the one that Jeff is getting all the rewards from?
That's the Aetna Gold Advantage policy. It has no premium associated with the policy whatsoever, which is fantastic. You still have to stay enrolled in your Medicare Part B like everyone else, no matter what policy you choose through Supplement, Medicare Advantage, Aetna, United, doesn't matter. You still have to stay enrolled in your base government benefits of Medicare Part A and B.
And our next text writes, you indicate the Medicare supplement plans are free. No. That seems misleading to me. Social Security deducts $349.40 per month from my check for Medicare premiums.
So first of all, Medicare supplements, never free. Those are the ones that have premium associated with them.
In our example, we put the premium at $175.
Exactly. Medicare Advantage plans have no additional cost to them.
But everyone pays their Part B premiums.
Right, which is why I mentioned that, which is why I say there's no cost to those plans, because we start from the premise that everyone that is eligible for a Medicare Advantage plan or a supplemental policy has to pay that Medicare Part B premium to stay enrolled in Medicare. So that's a wash in our minds. $349 a month sounds like the individual that sent us a text not only has a Medicare Part B premium to pay, but they have an adjustment to pay as well. So they're a higher income earner.
Irma?
Yes, they have the income-related Medicare adjustment to pay, which can not only impact your Medicare Part B premiums, but also impact your Part D premiums. So that's another great point, which is that if you happen to be a higher income earner on Medicare or have a higher adjusted gross income, you might not necessarily be working, but you're just taking large distributions from retirement accounts, or you have large pensions available to you. The Medicare Advantage plans that have zero premium may all of a sudden look as if they have a premium because you have to pay a bit for that prescription drug plan in taxes because of your income adjustment. But we'll still be here after our first break of this hour to continue to answer your questions at 314-931-5877 or text us at 84126 from the text line. We will be right back. Welcome back. We've got about 20 minutes left. So if you've been thinking about something, pondering something, if we've said something that made you think about something, don't wait. Send us a text, 84126 on the text line, or give us a call. We'd love to hear you, 314-931-5877. We're going to spend a little bit of time going through several questions that we've received over the week that I think many people could benefit from hearing some of these answers.
All emails get read. All emails are
responded to.
Right, and mined for, we think, oh, you know what, we've gotten several people asking variations of the same question. We'll talk about this on the show.
It is interesting. I don't know what the psychology or the physics is behind it, but questions tend to come in bunches or client situations tend to come in bunches where we see several people having the same issue, several people having questions around a similar topic. So we always feel as though if one person's asking, there's got to be others out there considering it as well. So that's why we think it makes sense every show to give you a little flavor of the questions that we're asked every single week. So, Rob, give us a few.
And Phil from Creve Core asks, I've been a listener for several years. Thank you. I also listen to other radio shows on your stations and others.
We forgive you.
Many of the advisors require a minimum level of investable assets to call them. Do you have a minimum? We get asked this so much.
We do. We are asked this question frequently, and I'm happy to say that we don't have account minimums. And when I first joined my dad 13 years ago now, I think it's been, he said to me that his dad, my grandpa, that's how the chain works, right, of lineage works, said to me, if you care more about the people, the money will come. And I've always taken that to heart, and I find it just so much fun, and really the reason to come to work every day is to sit down and chat with people, be invited into their lives. They tell us, so much about themselves, what they've done for a living their entire working career, how much they've earned, where they're invested, what their plans are, what their goals are in retirement, what their family looks like, how they'd like to help their family, maybe how they don't want to help their family. Whatever the case is, we really get to be an intimate part of our clients' lives, and I think that's so precious that putting a dollar amount on that isn't our priority. What is our priority is working with individuals that not only are looking for advice, but they're really looking to act on that advice. Some people look for advice and they're not necessarily ready to take action, but the relationships we have with our clients are really very much a two-way street. There are several things that we have to do. Help you design your game plan, talk to you about, our newsletter talks about some pitfalls along the way, help point those out to you, help you make decisions in the moment, and when you get to certain inflection points in your life, those are all investing those assets. That's part of our responsibility. But actually enacting some of the plans that we put into place that's really our client's responsibility. Staying within their 4% rate of withdrawal or staying on the glide path of cash flow that we've created, that's all their responsibility. So to truly have a successful and meaningful relationship, I think for both parties involved, we both have to be proactive, and I think that's what we put the most emphasis on when we're building client relationships.
And we have a text question. With the smoothing provisions, what will happen when you stop taking inexpensive medicine?
So it's a great question. I would say that most likely what is happening is if you have an expensive medication that you are using the smoothing provision for, you're only going to be billed until you've met the $2,000 or how many fills you've had. So if you only have one fill and let's say that cost already was $2,000, you'll pay the $2,000. But if you were using an expensive medication, like let's say that had a $600 fill, but your doctor says, okay, we're going to try this. It didn't work out. You only filled it once. You can break up that $600 over 12 months to pay it, but you're not going to be continuously, it's not going to keep adding on to that total that you have.
Correct.
Okay.
And our next texter writes, currently an Aetna Gold member, did not use the iMed network to acquire 2 pairs of glasses from Sam's. Is there any way to recover those costs with all the extra benefits being offered? I'm assuming the answer is no, but wanted to...
Let's think. So you can't use the eyewear benefit because you didn't go through iMed. So unfortunately, that's not available. Can't use the copay card. You know, I don't... Were they goggles?
You trying to get it on the fitness allowance?
You know what?
I would make them...
I would just make them say no. I would submit it under the fitness benefit and just see what happens. That is a complete flyer, and if you say, hey, I don't want to spend the time to do that, it's probably not going to work, but there's no reason not to try it out. I'll also... get with Frank, our Medicare coach, on this on Monday morning and see if he has any other ideas. But off the top of my head, I just say submit it to the fitness side and see if they take it. You know, you need glasses to play pickleball. Got to be able to see the ball coming at you.
I could definitely make that case. If I was on the phone arguing with them, I could definitely
make that. You could make a case for a lot of things, so I don't think that counts.
How's that saying go? If you have the facts, argue the facts. If you have the law, you argue the law. If not, just pound the table. Just pound the table. No, I mean,
right.
Like Erin says, the worst they can do is say no.
And you already got the no.
Right, you're already living in the land of no right now. So all that it's all upside is the way I see it.
It's all upside. And you know what else? I think let's just take our quick last break of the hour. We'll come back and finish up. We've got quite a few additional, not only text questions, but some mailbag questions here. And I want to leave the balance for anybody that wants to sneak in a question or two before we are over for the day. So don't forget 314-931-5877 or 84126 on the text line. We've got a little time left. We'll be right back. We are back for our last segment.
Man, this went really fast.
It really has this morning. You know, it wasn't 800 degrees, sun blazing down on us this morning.
And it wasn't like I was, totally nervous about doing the show without Jeff. I mean, we've done plenty of shows without him, but it just...
It's never the same without the big guy.
And I don't ever remember it going like...
You don't remember it going this fast?
You know what? I'm sure it probably did. You could fill books with the things I forgot or don't remember.
So we had one additional update. I got an email from a client who mentioned he bought a tricycle. His wife bought an exercise bike. They both already have their fitness reimbursements. I mean, our listeners are going to be the healthiest Medicare enrollees ever to have been enrolled in Medicare. Guys are going to live forever. You got to use the Medicare Advantage plans or you're going to be paying $1 trillion in premiums to the supplements because you're going to go on forever.
I was eavesdropping on Frank last week, and they were talking about how certain plans won't pay for the bike repair, but they will pay for the bike. And Frank just he's like, just buy another bike. Because they hadn't used it.
Right.
Their repair bills were not going to be submitted because they wouldn't. It says specifically won't do it.
Says it,
And they were, he's just like, well, they'll buy a new bike. It's time for a new bike. I got a kick out of that.
That is pretty funny. So hit us with another email question from the mailbag.
Good morning. I've listened to your show about the upcoming changes to Medicare that are going to be rolling out at the end of this year. I am very concerned about the possible price increases to the Medicare supplement. I've never had an Advantage plan, nor have I ever worked with an agent. Having said all that, when is the best time to set up an appointment with Frank, Rob, or you?
I think the best time is open enrollment, because that's going to be your optimal opportunity to make a change to currently using the supplements. You haven't had a Medicare Advantage plan. We don't know what the new Medicare Advantage plans are going to look like for next year.
We couldn't even discuss it with you because we haven't even seen them.
Right, and then we're also gagged, essentially, from discussing them until October 1st. So number one, it's a great time to call now to get on the schedule for an open enrollment appointment. But anyone that is curious about if you're currently using a supplement and you're curious about the differences between the supplement and the Medicare Advantage plans, one, you can always have a preliminary chat with Frank. Just give the office a call and he can give you an idea. We're going to go through a short example in a second because we also received another text question asking a similar question, which just goes back to my physics theory. Like, people ask these questions in bunches somehow. It's like the information, it's like the knowledge is out there. Everybody's just trying to grab at it.
And it's always it's always, as your dad would say, an algebra problem.
Exactly. So if you want to have a quick chat with Frank just to go through your numbers, he's always available to do that Monday through Friday. But if you really want to have a pointed conversation about your benefit options for the next year, October 1st is going to be the first day that we can do that. So if you want to get on the calendar in advance, our calendars go all the way till next year, so you can give us a call, and we're happy to get you on the calendar. So our texter just texted in. He wasn't able to hear the full comparison between premium and supplement versus Medicare Advantage. And this is what I have not sat in on as many Medicare meetings as I once did, now that we have Frank here dedicated full-time to making sure that all of our financial clients and everyone that wants to just utilize us for Medicare has the plan that they'd like and that fits them the best, which is great. But what I always used to talk about during my conversations with individuals with Medicare is that we don't want to think about your health over 1 year. We want to think about it over a 20-year period. And the reason for that is you could be on Medicare for more than 20 years. So we have to think about your longevity and what that might look like. Not every year is the best year of your life.
But on the other side of that, not every year is the worst one either.
Exactly. So when I think of a traditional Medicare supplement, or original Medicare, some people call it, or a Medigap policy, or Plan G, there's only 150 ways to say the same exact thing because it's all based in government coverage, as we all know. You are going to be paying everything up front. You pay a monthly premium no matter what happens. You're sick, you're healthy, you go to the doctor, you don't go to the doctor. You have a monthly premium to pay. Now, when you go visit the doctor, you have very low copays. You have no copays. You have a deductible to meet that's under $300, right?
$226, I believe. $240.
$240 this year, could be going up next year.
No network.
No network, so you can see any physician you'd like. Those are all great things. The average Medicare supplemental cost is about $170 a month now. So you're going to be paying almost a couple $1,000s a year in supplemental premium alone, about $2,000. Probably add another $20, $25 a month in prescription drug premium cost because you have to add a prescription drug plan to the supplement. So let's just say you're spending $2,500 a year in premium. Medicare Advantage plans are available that have zero copay, zero premium, And I identify.
Let me just stop you right there. Everyone pays their Part B premium. I don't want to leave people with the wrong impression.
Right. Everyone pays Medicare Part B. Let's put that to the side. You're either going to pile on $2,500 a year in supplemental premium costs, or you could pay nothing and only pay as you go, which means you're going to pay co-pays and co-insurance as you utilize services. This is going to feel a lot like the group health insurance plan you already have through work, except that nothing's coming out of your paycheck or Social Security, so to speak. Medicare lets you choose either premium or out of pocket, either all up front or pay as you go. Medicare Advantage is out of pocket, pay as you go. But the incredible thing is Medicare Advantage plans have expanded so dramatically since they were originally created during the Reagan administration, to the point where, we've spent a lot of time focusing on the Aetna Gold Advantage plan because it has a nice low maximum out of pocket of $2,400 a year. But the maximum out of pockets truly range from about $1,600 maximum to up to about $7,000, depending upon what type of policy you choose. But Essence, which is a local provider, we had the vice president of sales from Essence on our show several weeks ago, chatting about open enrollment and the changes to come. Another excellent policy and provider, but I'm sorry, not provider, but insurance company in the area. In most cases, especially with the price increases to the supplements, even the first year that you are on Medicare, it is very likely that you will be paying more in premium than you would have paid in maximum out-of-pocket in the worst year that you had on a Medicare Advantage plan. So why...
You front-run all those costs.
There has, for most of us, unless maybe you work for a large airplane manufacturer or pharmaceutical company that are based in this area, there has never been a time in your working or retired career where you were able to say that you had comprehensive coverage and you only had to pay for it when you used it. That's what the Medicare Advantage plans give you. And if, to our texter, you were able to listen to all of the extra benefits they also provide, Medicare Advantage plans are truly attempting to be comprehensive plans, not because the insurance companies are benevolent. I would never go that far. The healthier you are, the less money they have to spend on you. So they want you to use the fitness benefit and ride that bike. They want you to get your ears checked. They want you to have the hearing aid so you can engage with people around you. They want you to get your eyes checked so, obviously you get those glasses so you can see. The dentist. They want you to do all of those things. They want you to use the silver sneakers so that way overall, you are less of an expense to them. Who cares what benefit they get from it? We just pointed out that on the Aetna Gold Advantage plan, you're going to get $5,000 in benefits.
And we didn't even juke the stats by throwing in things like hearing aids, which are certainly available to you and that a lot of people need.
$4,000.
Right. We didn't want to make it sound like, wow, this is $10,000. But in theory, it could be if your needs required the use of all those peripheral benefits.
The supplement is a great option. You know your fixed costs. Now, it is going up every single year. They're not going to give you anything extra in most cases with those supplemental policies. Some will offer silver sneakers.
And an interesting aside is that the premium increases we had seen with the supplement were relatively benign over the last 10 or 12 years, about 3 to 4,
They're
maybe even
malignant. But it's going to be significant.
Yes, it is. Well, we had that, almost 20-year period where,
very little increases.
They would increase incrementally, but it was, you were on an escalator. Now you're on an elevator.
Right. It's going to move a little quicker. It's going to be a little more jolting. So if you're someone that you're getting a premium notice relatively soon and you say, this is high, maybe we take a look at your options for the 2025 plan year. We really appreciate everybody tuning in today. Even if the big guy wasn't here, we hope that you got a few tips and tricks out of today's show. We will be back next week, hopefully with a victorious Jeff from his victory at the tournament. Have a great weekend.
The opinions voiced in this show are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which investments may be appropriate for you, consult with your attorney, accountant, and financial advisor or tax advisor prior to investing. Securities offered through LPL Financial, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advice offered through Private Advisor Group, a registered investment advisor. Private Advisor Group and JBL Financial Services, Inc. are separate entities from LPL Financial.